when stargazers begin their work. They are men and women, old and young, experts and amateurs alike. Some use telescopes, others binoculars, or even just the naked eye. They diligently hike up hillsides to escape urban light pollution. Others simply climb onto rooftops or step out onto balconies. All share the same passion. If asked why, they say because the sky holds so much beauty, and all we need to do is look up to remember we are part of something greater. To reconnect with nature and the world, to find peace, self-reflection, purpose, expand knowledge, and share emotions with fellow enthusiasts. Those who also cherish the stars. They say stargazers make each individual a better person. That once one grasps the vastness of the universe, it's hard to see oneself as the center. They are poets, artists, heirs to a long-standing tradition. The night sky is wondrous to humans, and even to some animals. Animal behavior researchers have evidence that some nocturnal species can observe the sky and recognize beneficial cues. The indigo bunting, a charming songbird, migrates at night, navigating by observing the rotation of stars around Polaris. Though these stars rotate slowly, a quarter degree per minute, the birds can detect it. Slightly less adorable but no less impressive. A dung beetle species in South Africa rolls dung into balls at night to store food and compete with rivals. They also navigate by the stars, seemingly using the Milky Way as a beacon. Our Bronze Age ancestors were diligent sky watchers. They obviously observed the sun and moon, but also stars and planets. Observing the sun and moon helped measure time and determine planting and harvesting seasons. Orbit around the sun ISN. For millennia, calendar makers struggled with the mismatch between solar years and lunar months. 10,000 years ago in Scotland, they dug a series of 12 pits called the Warren Field calendar. To track lunar cycles and align with the winter solstice sunrise. Thus, reconciling the solar year with lunar cycles. The Gothic Circle in Germany and Stonehenge in England are among subsequent structures. By the Bronze Age, Stonehenge was built in 6 phases from 3000 to 1520 BCE. First, a ring of pits for cremation burials. Then evolving into a complex of sandy stones arranged in concentric rings. The main axis aligns with the winter solstice sunrise, with alignments marking the most extreme northern and southern moonrises. Not only for observing the sun and moon to create agricultural calendars. Stonehenge also demonstrated the power of chiefs and priests who commissioned it and were buried nearby, and likely honored ancestors in the afterlife. Other artifacts attest to the religious and social significance of celestial bodies in the Bronze Age, including the sky disk, nebra, and golden hats. The nebra sky disk, made of bronze with gold inlays dating to around 2000 BCE, found in present-day Germany. Gold symbols depict the crescent and full moon, along with the Pleiades star cluster, the earliest known astronomical depiction. Considered an astronomical clock tracking lunar calendars millennia before other known methods. Golden hats were made from thin conical gold sheets worn as headgear, part of a sun-worshipping cult by priests once widespread in Central Europe. 4 such hats are known today, dating from 1400 to 800 BCE. Along their height, they are decorated with bands, mainly concentric circles and discs, sometimes wheels. The decorations show a systematic sequence in number and type per band. Detailed studies suggest they allowed use of a complex algorithm to calculate dates in both solar and lunar calendars. In subsequent centuries, astronomy developed significantly in Babylon, Mesopotamia, and took on a new important social function. Seeking signs from God's warning of wars, crop failures, and plagues. Scribes in temples, often priests, were tasked with observing the sky nightly and recording observations on clay tablets. By the 7th century BCE, astronomical diaries recorded events like the first appearance of the star Hanley, or when planets passed through the Pleiades, when Venus reappeared after being hidden too close to the Sun, or when Jupiter appeared stationary and began retrograde motion. Around 300 BCE, temple scribes could use complex algorithms to predict planetary behavior. Slightly later, but astronomy also developed early in China. Detailed astronomical observation records were preserved from about 6 centuries BCE. And by the 4th century BC, Gandhi and Sisson were considered the first in the world to establish a record of stars, and recorded naked-eye observations of Ganymede, the moon of Jupiter, and sunspots. In China, the emperor was regarded as the son of heaven, and tracking the calendar or predicting lunar and solar eclipses was crucial. Various astronomical texts were written whenever a new emperor ascended the throne, accompanied by predictions of lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, and the movements of stars. Chinese astronomers, like the Babylonians before them and unlike the Greeks and later Europeans, were primarily concerned with observing and recording singular celestial events, such as comets, novae, meteor showers, solar eclipses, and sunspots, rather than uncovering the laws underlying these phenomena. Specifically, they meticulously recorded the sudden appearance of what were called guest stars among the fixed stars. They were the first to record the supernova explosion of 185 BC, and much later in 1054, they witnessed the formation of the Crab Nebula. India and Egypt are examples of other cultures where astronomy developed, playing a significant role in social and religious life. The Egyptians used astronomical records to predict and prepare for the Nile floods accordingly. They aligned massive pyramids and temples with astronomical positions, such as the Great Pyramid of Giza, aligned with the pole star. Thousands of kilometers to the south, the Napta Bleja stone circle was built over 7,000 years ago by nomadic cattle herders to mark the summer solstice and the onset of monsoons. In the Americas, European invasions and Christian missionaries led to the collapse of pre-Columbian cultures, complicating the reconstruction and convincing of earlier history. However, there is serious evidence that the Maya linked their calendar and rituals to celestial phenomena. Some important Maya structures are considered to be oriented toward the rising and setting of Venus. The ancient Maya regarded Venus as the patron god of war, and many recorded wars coincided with the movement of this planet. The ancient Greeks were keen star watchers. They relied on astronomy to organize agriculture and navigate the seas. But their greatest contribution was their effort to explain what was seen. Not only did they observe and record the movements of celestial bodies, they sought to understand the why and how behind that order. They began to transform stargazing into a science. Around 270 BC, the mathematician and astronomer Aristarchus of Samos correctly asserted that the Sun, rather than the Earth, was the center of the planetary system, that the Earth and other planets revolve around the Sun, and that the Earth rotates on its own axis. But he was far ahead of his time, and his ideas were rejected. It took 18 centuries for Copernicus to revive them. Decades later, the Christian Church placed Galileo under house arrest and burned Giordano Bruno for supporting Copernicus's heliocentric theory. It took another 7 decades for Kepler to publish his laws of planetary motion. Indeed, for nearly 1,000 years from the fall of the Roman Empire to the Renaissance, the Middle Ages cast a shadow over Europe, in contrast to the Islamic world, which saw brilliant cultural developments. Particularly, the period considered the Golden Age from the 9th to the 13th centuries. It spread from the Middle East to Central Asia, Spain, North Africa, and later to the Far East and India. It prevented the disappearance of knowledge accumulated in previous centuries by fostering a scientific revival. In Baghdad, the House of Wisdom, a massive library and academy established by al-Ma'mun, played a crucial role, supporting and advancing the field of astronomy. Besides creating tables recording the motions of the sun, moon, and planets, Islamic astronomers began to critique Ptolemy geocentric theory and maintained observations using advanced instruments, their influence extending worldwide. Most ancient cultures had visual identifications of constellations. Remains of a star catalog found in the Euphrates River valley suggest images of a lion, a bull, and a scorpion. The earliest references to constellations can be found in the Iliad about 27 centuries ago. In it, Homer describes the god Hephaestus creating Achilles' shield with all the constellations in the sky. The Pleiades and Hyades, mighty Orion and the Bear, the only one that does not bathe in the ocean. Over time, most constellations became associated with myths. Stars were not only linked to gods and heroes, but the gods themselves were considered sacred. In fact, it is the legends and myths that tell us about the constellations, as people of all eras have tried to decode these constellations based on the knowledge they possessed. Rich myths and legends from all over the world converge in the starry sky. For the Greeks, the stars were repositories of folklore and mythology. The images of constellations were of heroes and monsters, granted a place among the stars to honor their deeds on Earth. They were considered semi-divine spirits, living, conscious, and traversing the heavens. The Egyptian sky was filled with images of animals, symbols, and deities important in their interpretation of the universe. For them, the day continued to live among the stars, ruled by Osiris associated with the constellation Orion. Soul birds, eagles, ravens, swans, and peacocks carried their souls to the stars. A notable example in Vietnamese mythology is the adaptation from the Chinese legend of the cowherd and the weaver girl. The two lovers are identified with the stars Vega and Altair. They are separated, living on opposite sides of the celestial river, the Milky Way. Except on the seventh day of the seventh lunar month, a flock of magpies will hold a bridge across the river so they can reunite for a day. The earliest known reference to this myth originates from a poem over 2,600 years ago. The seventh day of the seventh lunar month is Qixi Festival in China, dedicated to young lovers, similar to Valentine's Day in the West. S. Chilsog, and in Vietnam it. If it rains on that day, it is said to be the happy tears of the weaver girl when reuniting with her lover. Considered as deities, stars came to serve the function of delivering prophecies. Most religions use some form of astrology to interpret the influence of stars on human life. Most ancient civilizations believed that observing the movements of planets could help predict the future and determine the direction of each individual's life. Stargazing influenced daily decisions in medieval Europe, from around 500 to 1500. Medieval scholars adopted the teachings of the Arabs that planets influence human destiny through their positions in the sky. Medical, philosophical, and even theological students carefully observe the astrological relationships between the 12 zodiac signs and a person's physical, mental, and spiritual health. Indeed, many religions believe that the radiant sun, full moon, twinkling stars, and distant planets have great power over life, seasons, and daily activities. They attempted to predict the future from the positions of the planets. Over time, this divinatory astrology evolved, transforming into today's astronomy. In Vietnam today, there remains of heat influence, along with many superstitions associated with feng shui and horoscope. These practices originated from ancient China, with the idea that energies can be used to harmonize humans with their environment. Accordingly, the sun is the lord of the entire world, affecting all our joys and sorrows. The stars are deities serving the sun, among which there are good stars and bad stars. Days governed by good deities will be lucky days, suitable for important tasks. Everything will then proceed smoothly and successfully, avoiding risks and disasters. Conversely, on days governed by bad deities, one should avoid important matters like building a house or holding a wedding to avoid misfortune and failure. Around the world, solstices and equinoxes have always been occasions for major festivals and celebrations. The summer solstice, a reference for predicting planting and harvesting times, is accompanied by festivals like Kronia in ancient Greece, honoring the agricultural god Cronus, or Vestalia in ancient Rome, honoring the goddess Vesta, the hearth goddess. In ancient China, earth, femininity, and yin were honored on the summer solstice, while Han, masculinity, and yang were honored on the winter solstice. Native American tribes also had midsummer rituals, dancing around a pole and wearing symbolic colors. In ancient Rome, the Saturnalia festival celebrated the winter solstice, honoring the agricultural god Saturn. Many traditions and elements in today's Christmas are inherited from that, and from Yule, the winter solstice celebration of ancient Scandinavian and Germanic peoples. For the Incas, the winter solstice occurred in June with the Inti Raymi festival, dedicated to the sun god. Similarly, the Greeks celebrated the autumn equinox, when the goddess Persephone returned to the underworld to reunite with her husband Hades. The full moon nearest to the autumn equinox was called the harvest moon by ancient Chinese, celebrated with a moon worship ceremony. The spring equinox determines Easter on the Sunday after the full moon, and the Egyptian Sphinx was built facing the sunrise on the spring equinox. Speaking of the world of stargazers, we should also spare a few words for astronomical instruments. Before the 17th century, when the telescope was invented, most instruments aimed to measure direction, specifically two angles, where celestial bodies were observed in the time of observation. Water clocks used the flow of water from one container to another through a small hole to measure time. And sundials appeared in Egypt and Babylon in the late Bronze Age, spreading to other civilizations, particularly improved in China and the Islamic world. In the first millennium AD, other clocks measuring time from the flow of fine sand appeared in Europe. And incense clocks using evenly burning incense, as well as candle clocks, appeared in China. It wasn't until the 14th century that humans had purely mechanical clocks driven by a weight and regulated by a pendulum. They helped improve accuracy and sophistication, especially with astronomical clocks, displaying information, many relative positions of the sun, moon, zodiac constellations, and major planets. The astrolabe, an analog computing device of Greek origin, provided information such as the times of sunrise and sunset of the sun and stars, or the altitude of the sun at its highest point above sea level. It was widely used in the medieval Islamic world. The sophisticated astrolabe-type calculator, tracking time with a gear mechanism, was built in Persia in the 11th century. The Antikythera mechanism, likely invented by Archimedes, is an orrery model that could predict lunar phases and eclipses. It lay at the bottom of the sea for over 1,000 years before being found from a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901. Some devices help popularize astronomical knowledge and demonstrate the relative motions of celestial bodies. The armillary sphere, a spherical model with rings centered on the Earth or Sun, was invented separately in ancient China. Possibly as early as the 4th century BC and in ancient Greece in the 3rd century BC, and later used in the Islamic world and medieval Europe. Another example is the orrery, a mechanical model of the solar system, predicting the positions and relative motions of planets and some of their moons. It was often operated by a clockwork mechanism, with a sphere representing the sun at the center and a planet at the end of each arm. Celestial globes were also used for navigation and became popular on long sea voyages. A century ago, astronomers were still continuing the flow of observations that began 5 millennia earlier. They looked at photographic plates of the night sky, faithful to the legacy of illustrious predecessors, and then suddenly everything changed. Physicists, chemists, and even biologists are involved in this field. In an instant, quantum physics and relativity completely overturned how we envision the universe. Many types of equipment, such as electronic, radio, infrared, ultraviolet, and X-ray telescopes, from ground-based to space-based, participate in the exploration. Supercomputers were built to analyze new observations, but then a series of new questions emerged and remain unanswered to this day. Instead of naming them after gods, people now call them by mysterious terms like dark matter, dark energy, the Big Bang, expansion, and the Planck scale. Subscribe to the Guy and Migo channel so you don't miss exciting videos.